The views and opinions expressed by guests of the Macabre World podcast are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the host, podcast, or Darker Arts Studios. The Macabre World podcast is brought to you by Darker Arts Studio, home of real human bone jewelry. Stock and custom pieces are available, so visit us on the web at www.darkerartstudio.com and show them your darker art side. Macabre World, a podcast from Darker Arts Studio, where we explore the dark, strange, and unusual from this world and beyond. Hello and welcome to the Macabre World podcast. I'm your host, Rocky Digati, and with me today are author and producer Floyd Bocox and Al Bowman, executive producer and founder of the LA Music Awards, among others, and here to talk about the story of the music of Cliff Morrison and the Lizard Sun Band. It's a tale of rock legacy as told in Floyd's book, Morrison Land. Cliff being the presumed son of legendary Doors frontman Jim Morrison. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you for having us on.
So both of you have illustrious histories in the LA music scene. Could you give me a little bit of background, each one of you, about how you came to work together with the Cliff Morrison project? What intrigued you first? Was it the music, the legacy, both? How did this come about?
Al, you go first.
Okay, well, Bill Gazzari, who was the godfather of rock and roll, who had a club open from 1960 till 1992 called Gazzari's on the Strip. That was the heyday, the golden era of rock music, when the Sunset Strip was the dominant place of rock music in the world. The Whiskey, the Roxy, Gazzari's, the Rainbow Bar and Grill, the Central, Filthy McNasty's. This was the Sunset Strip in the 60s. The Doors was the house band at Gazzari's for many years. They were kicked out of the Whiskey because Jim Morrison exposed his genitals to the crowd. Which today would get you a viral video on YouTube.
This is true. I keep thinking of the Red Hot Chili Peppers and their socks, and Jim Morrison got pinched for that, not once, but a couple of times.
Yeah, and so Bill Gazzari, when he died, 3 days before he died, asked me and handed me his very famous fedora hat, who I put in auction several years ago. David Lee Roth bought it for $1,200.
Oh wow!
He said that the only thing that could save the LA music scene from what was happening with grunge rock from Seattle was if someone would start an award show and make it just about local bands in LA and keep it all rock and unify the scene to go up against what was emerging from Seattle, which was like Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Bowl, Mother Love Bone, Pearl Jam, etc. And because that type of music completely wiped out the LA music scene like that. It literally, when grunge rock came in, it knocked out the glam rock scene of LA. So the very last night when Diane Gazzari, who could not keep the club going, she tried to keep it open for a year. She was Bill's niece, but Bill was, he was Gazzari's. So people would go there and they'd expect to see Bill Gazzari. So when it was more of a, talk about interactive experience, it was interactive without, computer technology back then. People actually interacted with each other in a human environment. So when Bill died, the very last performance at his club in 1992, which was the first time I saw Cliff Morrison, was Cliff performing on the stage at the very last night that Gazzari was open. I had to be there because of this nostalgia that was attached to the Gazzari's for me. But then when I saw Cliff and I heard him and I looked at him, I said, this is Jim Morrison's son. He really is Jim Morrison's son. Then there were people in the crowd that were saying he wasn't really Jim Morrison's son, and it was just a bunch of hype and all this other stuff. But I believed, based on my gut instinct, that he truly was, because it's in the DNA, the movements, the vocal delivery, the style. It was him. And so it wouldn't be until, many years later that I would hook up with Floyd, because when I started the LA Music Awards in 1991, which was the first year, that first year we dedicated it to the memory of Bill Gazzari, and every year since we dedicated to Bill Gazzari. And when Cliff came along from a referral from a mutual friend of ours, Russ, he said, "Hey, man, this guy represents Cliff Morrison." I said, "Cliff Morrison? I saw him in 1992 at the closing night of Bazaar. He's on the Strip." And he said, "Well, you should hook up with Floyd because he's trying to get this guy a record deal." And I said, "Well, what I can do is I can put him on the stage at my 18th annual Los Angeles Music Awards event in Hollywood, and I'll give him the stage and let him perform a couple of songs, and put him in front of a full house and put him on the red carpet. And we'll showcase him and give him some recognition so that Floyd has marketing tools to work with so that he can push Cliff into the business as an award-winning act, which will always give you a competitive advantage if you use it right." And so that's how Floyd and I came together with Lizard Sun Entertainment. Floyd was basically a sponsor of Cliff Morrison's performance, and they had a dinner table, and they were part of the show, and it was a remarkable performance. I have it on DVD. It's been taken off of YouTube. Again, another one of those, people fighting to keep Cliff out of the spotlight. Don't want him to be seen. But I have the DVD, and when I put it on and I play it, this is what the weirdest part about that night was. We had so many technical problems at that show, but for whatever reason, Cliff's performance with the camera switching, the audio mix, everything was absolutely perfect. You couldn't have asked for a more perfect sound mix, perfect video, not one technical mistake. That could not be said for the rest of the performances. I had to basically just grab clips to build a sizzle reel from that event because we had so many technical problems. But that is one of the most memorable performances in 25 years of the LA Music Awards. We went from 91 to 2015. Was Cliff Morrison's performance that year, and him saying, "My father's here," and then you see that little white thing flying around. And,
that's incredible. And you said the clip's no longer on YouTube?
Yeah, it was on YouTube for a while, but it got taken down. So that's how it started with Floyd and I. I showcased thousands of bands over my career as the executive producer of the LA Music Awards. Cliff was just one of them, but he was probably, out of 25 years, a top 5 memorable performer. Yeah,
that's an incredible endorsement considering the pedigree of the event.
Yeah, definitely.
And so, Floyd, how did you find him? Because if you brought him to Al, how did you find him? I mean, I know that you go into this in your book, and folks, Floyd's written a book called Morrison Land, and you can find that on Amazon. Also, you are it's in the works for a movie.
Yep, that's correct. On IMDb, Morrison Land, and we're on the last stage right now. I'm working with Al right now as far as the last part of it. Screenplays done, trailers. We're on the last part production, and we're ready to go. We're waiting for somebody to get back here soon, and then we're gonna push it. But for me, with how it all started was through the keyboardist. His mother went to school with me at Mary Starr, and they called me through a mutual friend who's a doctor, and they say, "Hey, they want to get with you and see what you can do with this band." And I just finished. I've been let's see. This is going to be with Lizard Sun Entertainment. Is going to be my 3rd record company that I created as the, I say president, co-founder, and all that. So what I did was that I had the band get together and perform at my house. And at the time, I was with Nicole David, the senior vice president at William Morrison Endeavor, which was before that William Morris Agency. And her clients are like Whitney Houston and Reba McEntire. Then she got into the theatrical part of it too. So she had some pretty heavy people behind her. So I had her, and her husband was one of my producers with Floyd Records back in the day. And they came to the house. And so the band performed, and it was a good performance in the living room too. It was crazy. And then on the side, she pulls me on the side. Nicole told me, he sounds just like Jim. I said, well, what do you think, man? Should I sign him up and create this? She goes, yeah, go ahead, sign him up. So that's how Lizard Son started. I created the Lizard Son Entertainment. I was the co-founder and president. Cliff, I had him signed to me as an artist, and then I just got behind him, and we've went through quite a few rehearsals and picking up different band members, but they're all pretty much all longshoremen here from San Pedro. And we finally, everybody got along together. That was another thing about everybody getting along. And we had a few episodes in the studio, but I was there to break it up. But anyway, we got that done.
That's rock and roll.
Yeah. Oh, we had some fights in there, man. But, whoa, I had to stop all the stuff going on in there. But yeah, it all came on to it, and everybody's getting along, and the vibe's good, and music's coming out right, and time to record, for Color People. So that was another deal there that we had to go through also. But yeah, I mean, like Al was talking about, getting them out there in Hollywood, we hit a lot of places, and even a couple of really well-known places that he performed and great audiences. And the thing that I did was back in 2008 was I introduced him at the NAMM show as my first coming artist, and Cliff Morrison as far as being revealed as Jim's son. So we had the Composer's Corner there, and they were there doing a couple episodes on Cliff and itself, and it turned out great. Questions about him and Jim and his father, and it was a great thing for him. And the audience there in itself there at the NAMM show was just so many people there. We arrive in a limo. I mean, it's just red carpet event. It was crazy. A lot of people were just like going crazy with Cliff's music.
Well, so, I was going to ask real quick. To be honest, I've been a Doors fan all of my life, and I think obviously an incredibly popular, a legendary band, if you will. And this was in recent times for me the first I'd heard of a son of Jim Morrison. So I'm almost hesitant to say I don't know how much of a common knowledge it is that Cliff is Jim Morrison's son. I don't know how much opposition you receive in stating that. I think, and just coming from somebody who sings with a sister that sounds a lot like her, and remembering how the Everly Brothers, there is such a thing as a familial resemblance in how people sound and how they sing. Absolutely. And I think that if people just listen, never mind the remarkable similarities in face and what he looks like, but I think if they just listen, it's obvious. I mean, I can imitate Jim Morrison. In fact, there's a poor young man named Kevin somewhere in Bristol, Rhode Island, who's probably still traumatized from that. But this is not a put on performance. You can tell from the material that this is how he sounds, and it is remarkably mapped to sound familiar. Like just how the first person that came to mind was Ben Taylor singing with his dad is James Taylor, and they sound quite similar. There is a marked resemblance, if you will, in the voices. And we're gonna play a little bit of a clip from a song from his album No Peeking, and this is Technology. And I think it's obvious that that's, it's almost eerie. So when billing him as Jim Morrison's son, was there a lot of opposition and a lot of challenge to that?
This is for Al or me?
For either of you, actually,
Yeah,
because
Let me take this one.
You go ahead, Al. You go. You go first.
In the screenplay, which Floyd did a remarkable job on this.
It is fantastic.
This literary work. I mean, I'm now the producer, executive producer of the Nashville Music Awards, and I'm also running a media public relations company. I can't wait to give this some recognition on the red carpet in Nashville, Tennessee. So let me tell you, Nashville has an undeserved reputation as a country music place. It's really classic rock. This place is dominated by classic rock. When people think Nashville's all country, walk down Broadway to all those venues. You walk by, you hear Van Halen, you hear Def Leppard, you hear Motley Crue. You don't hear country. I never hear. I'm hearing Fleetwood Mac and Journey. I don't ever hear any country. I'm like, well, I thought this place was country. It's not. The country labels are all here. The country management companies. There are a lot of country artists that come out of here. There is a lot of country music here, but the dominant form of live music that people come to hear is classic rock. It's very, very dominant here. So I just wanted to make that clear because I think that what Floyd did with this book, the screenplay especially, did he send you a copy of the screenplay?
He did, it's what
really
I thought was incredible was it was. A lot of people are going to have different takes on it, depending on what their life has been like when they read it. And I recommend folks definitely just go to Amazon and buy the book. It's an amazing story. But one of the things that struck me was I thought it was a faceted tale of fatherhood.
Yes.
Because we got to know Floyd and some of his relationships with his dad and his kids. Yep. And it was about Jim Morrison and Cliff, and about Cliff and his daughter. I think that tied it all in together and really gave the story so much heart.
Nailed it. That's what you make a creative hit movie out of. That story, the familial relationship aspect. And I'm glad you spotted that.
Absolutely.
Because we had a guy that, and I don't know how Floyd dealt with him, but Floyd addresses as Alan Graham, who is the biggest emotional terrorist in the history of planet Earth.
Oh my.
Without a doubt. And I dealt with some real nasty characters in my life, working in Hollywood for 25 years, producing.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Then I did 8 years in Las Vegas, and I had to deal with some real scoundrels and scumbags in that town for 8 years. But nobody that I ever dealt with was as horrible as Alan Graham.
Explain to the audience who Alan Graham is.
I was just going to say.
He did.
Well, Alan Graham, he was friends with a lot of powerful people. But the one thing about Alan Graham that people don't know is that he was ever present at the death of every major rock star.
Correct.
Who passed away.
Yep. Now, and isn't he also Jim Morrison's brother-in-law?
Janis Joplin, Kurt Cobain. I mean, he's there, present when they die at the age. They all died the same age, 27.
27 Club.
That number in the numerology in the satanic realm or whatever you want to call it has some sort of significance. That's why they all die at that same age. We can prove that Alan Graham was in the vicinity of Jim Morrison's death, of Jimi Hendrix's death, of Janis Joplin's death. Even Amy Winehouse, he happened to be over in the UK when she passed away. I'm just saying.
Don't forget about Al Ducci. Don't forget about Al Ducci, too.
El Duce, another one.
That's a heavy story there, too.
Yeah, El Duce was, Courtney Love's confidant, and he died while filming a documentary that was exposing whether or not Courtney Love had Kurt murdered. And then he died during production. He was hit by a train. And then the CHP said California Highway Patrol said it was suicide, but it wasn't.
They took him off the porch, remember? The day before, the band members saw that.
In front of that train. There's all these things. But Alan Graham was the one making the bomb threats. And we knew it was him doing it. We told the sheriff's department it was him. When we showcased Cliff in 2009 at the Whiskey A Go-Go, sheriff's department brought in bomb-sniffing dogs. And then we asked earlier, how difficult was it to book Cliff Morrison and showcase him? They had to bring in the bomb-sniffing dogs to make sure there were really no bombs that were going to blow up the Whiskey A Go-Go so Cliff could play a set. Wow. And then Graham, would call and, he had this very anybody who's British would hear Alan Graham's accent and tell you that his was a guttural, Clockwork Orange type, a British accent. He's one of those, he's very mean. Like, he had to have probably the meanest voice of anybody I ever dealt with in my life. He was. He was. Oh, he was horrible. And he would say things like, you with your award show, you have no business doing an award show. You don't know what you're talking about. And I'm not going to allow you to put Cliff on your stage. I will do whatever I can to stop you from showcasing this man. You cannot put him on your stage. I will blow up the venue. I will blow it up. And he would say this, and I'd be like, Alan, the show must go on. I'm not afraid of you. What do you mean better afraid? Because I will come and I will kill you. He would say this to me. Then, when my wife would get on the phone with him, Susanna, he would say, oh, I've seen your picture with your little hooker pants on. You look like a hooker, a cheap prostitute. Like he was just like, and she would just go, oh my God, this guy's like the most, and I have saved his emails.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. I got him saved too.
Brutal. Yep. He is brutal. And I asked this one, but what was his motivation to be such an asshole? Like, was it just power and control? I mean, what was the real reason that Alan Graham was such a bastard and a prick?
Well, let everybody know that he was Cliff's first manager, you know what I mean, at the time. And at the time, don't forget that he had Domino Harvey there with him when all this was beginning. Don't forget about that, too.
Another mysterious death.
Yeah, Domino Harvey. That's big time there.
That's movies made, 2 movies about Domino.
Yep.
You know about her, right? The bail bonds girl and all that?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
White Roses, I believe, was the name of the DVD. I got that.
Yeah.
Yep.
There was, that was, wow. And strangely enough, Alan Graham is still alive. He's in his early 80s now.
Yep.
He almost killed his wife in a domestic violence.
Oh, dear.
And he was put in jail.
Yep.
And he came out of jail in a wheelchair. And the reason why is because that attitude that I just described, he went into jail with that, probably barking that kind of crap at big black guys and stuff. they gave him a beat down, man.
Oh,
yeah, they did.
Now, he's also connected to the Morrison family.
Yeah, that's Jim. Yeah, that's Jim's brother-in-law. He's married to Anna, Jim's sister.
Ann Morrison. Yes, he was married to Ann Morrison. So this gave him that, in his own head anyway, that feeling of full control over anything Morrison. And I can tell you, man, I never had anybody put me through a meat grinder like what that guy did.
Oh, yeah. Horrible.
So do you think his opposition was to the claim of him being Jim's son, or because of the similarity that the fan base might? I mean, what do you think? Where was the opposition? What was the motivation to be so oppositional?
Al, let me jump on this real quick. All right, so briefly, what it was before I let Release Color People, I got a hold of the Morrison estate. At the time, the attorney was Louis Friesman. He's passed away by now, but they all know who I am. So I talked to him and I told him, hey, Lou, we're getting ready to release Color People. And there's a track on there that has Jim's poetry, and he says he talks about his son. The song's called Liquid Highway. So he goes, okay, Floyd, send me 3 copies and I'll go ahead and see if this is Jim's voice. So say about 2-3 weeks later, I receive a hard copy letter in the mail, and it's from Louis Friesman, the Morrison estate. And they validated that is Jim's voice. So how did you get that? Well, Danny Sugarman, who was the Doors manager, is the one that gave it to Cliff before he died. And he said, your father wanted you to have that. So on the 4th sample on Liquid Highway, that's when Jim talks about my boy. So that part validates that with Cliff and the music and Jim. And then with Alan Graham, Cliff, we used to call him Uncle Al. And, it just like, you just got to watch out for him, be careful when you're around him type of thing. Because everybody knows what happens to certain individuals. So I never had that opportunity to meet him, but we did discuss it over the phone and what we were, saying, what kind of shenanigans we had to go through. Go ahead, Al.
Oh, well, again, one of the things he said to me was, you can't showcase Cliff because I own him. I own his
Right.
rights, his life rights. I own every part of his music. I own his publishing. I own this. I own that. So I let him finish, and I sent him an email. I said, "Hey, man, Alan, Lincoln freed the slaves.
Oh my.
Nobody owns anybody." Okay. So again, he just couldn't believe. He was so used to people being intimidated by him because most people were like, "Oh, okay, I don't want any trouble." But I was in the army and I had drill sergeants screaming at me for 6 months.
Yeah.
So
I got a little bit of a Teflon coating on me. Go ahead, you're gonna bounce right off me. I don't care, And
we're gonna go ahead and play that clip from Liquid Highway, so
okay.
that folks can hear the piece that you're talking about with Jim Morrison talking about My Boy. So here's a clip from Liquid Highway, and this is from Cliff Morrison.
I was walking down the highway, I was looking for the sky. I don't know why. I don't know why. She was coming down the other way. She was looking for her guy. She caught my eye. Now I feel high.
So what a crazy cast of characters. Like, are you going to play him in the movie? You should.
I absolutely. I would have rather play Bill Gazzari because I know how to talk like Bill. Bill was funny.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that's another thing that engaged me about the book, is that there is such a wide cast of characters, and one of the more interesting side characters is Cliff's mother,
Oh boy, here we go. Let's talk about that one.
Now,
Lorraine, aka Lenny.
we had a very interesting. Now, my ex-wife, who's passed on, had a very strong bond and relationship with Lorraine, aka Lenny.
True. True.
I think Lenny made some terrible mistakes. I think she was deathly afraid of success
Yeah.
because Floyd put together a very lucrative reality TV show deal worth $1 million, and that dumb lady turned it down. And that, those split-second decisions in life.
Right.
When you're in the military, you learn to understand how a split-second decision, like my head itches, I'm going to take my helmet off for a second and scratch. Boom, bullet hits you. Well, this is kind of what happened with her because Floyd put this deal together. It took months to put it together. And it was for a full reality TV show with a major television production company, a big 7-figure advance payment for the story. And she didn't want to do it. And I think the reason why she didn't want to do it is because she would have been exposed as not really being Cliff's real birth mother. Isn't that right, Floyd?
Yeah, I mean, go ahead, Rocky.
I'm so sorry. I was just trying to sneak this in because the concept of Jim Morrison having an affair with a groupie and somebody in the era of free love and excess and
Right.
as they used to say back in the day, as a young lady getting into trouble, and is not really. This isn't a crazy theory. I mean, it's not implausible. It doesn't. It's probably happened. How many paternity suits, go against performers?
There is 20 paternity suits legally that I know of, and to be honest, Cliff has been the closest one to be the true heir. But they won't accept that because of the monies. Everybody's monies are going to change. That's why they're not. We'll talk about that when Cliff goes out to go meet the Admiral and he's got Clara, the baby, and that whole scene when you're ready. But yeah, it's about monies and all that for sure.
Do you think that Lenny not being his birth mother, that theory is the reason why DNA evidence has not been thus far collected, because then it would prove that she wasn't his mother?
Go ahead, Al.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. She confided in my former spouse that the birth of Cliff was super secretive in a bathtub in Venice Beach and handed off to her by the real mother. Cliff was born in a very unique set of circumstances.
Sounds like.
And, because abortion was illegal at the time.
Sure.
You could get abortions, but when you had sex with Jim Morrison and you were carrying his baby and you were a woman, were you going to abort that baby? Hell no. you know.
It's the
So
Lizard Prince.
yeah, right. And so, but she did confide in Suzanne of a backstory of a baby handoff that happened. Like, here, I have this baby. You take him, you raise him. He's Jim's son. Yada yada yada. So
Well,
this is
that's,
one of many tales that were told.
yeah,
But
definitely.
ultimately, when it came down to Floyd's $1 million deal, which Floyd was just rubbing his hands to cash in on after all the money he put out, Floyd, you were into Cliff 400 grand at the time.
Oh yeah.
So you deserved your payoff. When Lenny killed the deal, I was just, because I was part of the group at that time, I was like, why would she do that? Like, why? And then we tried to ask her. She's like, oh, I don't want to talk about that. There's just too much that'll come out, and I don't want anybody to know. And I'm still deeply private person, and I just don't want any of this to be either made public. And I was like, okay, so there is something to this backstory here.
I want to touch on that subject real quick about Lorraine Lenny. So for the audience and everybody, that Lenny did work as an informant with J. Edgar Hoover in her younger days. So everybody needs to know that, yeah, she was hired by the J. Edgar Hoover to go out to this part out there. You know, back then they were protesting and all that stuff going on, and she was part of that, infiltrating with Hendrix, the Doors, Janis Joplin, all those in that era. I would say that was her job, and she had an Odessa file with the FBI and CIA. I was told this, so I got a special friend who's a captain. I'm going to mention his name, but he's here with me. Is for the police department. I went to his house. I asked him, "Can you check up on this for me?" He goes, "Okay," and he did. He goes, "Yeah, man, you got 2 red flags on her. One with the FBI and one with the CIA. That is true. She is." So that's been confirmed. All right. So you got this woman part of that whole scene, but yeah, that happened, and I wasn't even aware of it until I went and checked it out. Like, whoa. All
Yeah,
right.
Rocky, you know that those agencies, those alphabet agencies, kept files on all these rock stars.
Well, I would imagine. I mean, this is also, we're coming out of a time. We're in wartime. For a amount of that, and we're coming out of, like, you know, the whole Red Scare. You know, historically,
and we're in the Cold War. Yeah,
and I think historically it has always been very much part of the entertainment business to, and I don't want to say control, but definitely monitor and police content, monitor and police. I mean, it goes back to the 30s and 40s when there was propaganda in Bugs Bunny cartoons. So entertainment has always been a vehicle politically. So it doesn't surprise me that government agencies would have involvement, would have, you know, because of the sheer influence in the culture, and what that can mean for the country.
I agree.
Yeah. So, So ultimately, I think when Lenny turned that down, I think it was self-preservation on her part to avoid exposure of who she really was, because she didn't want that out. And to this day, and I used to say this to my ex, I said, I don't think she's Cliff's real mother.
She's not.
And and I said, the fact that she raised him, it doesn't make her his mother. And I think his real mother.
What do you think? I say it's Pamela Morrison.
The character that Meg Ryan played in the Doors movie is his real mother. That's who I'm going with.
Well, speaking as a ginger. That's usually a pretty obvious mutation. And I did notice that your man Cliff is also a fellow ginger.
Yeah,
Yes.
when you look at him at the time when he was with us, I mean, you can see the profile on the side of his face, his lips, his hair, his eyes, just like Pamela Morrison. That's what I see. And, you know, I want to bring up something real quick about that, is that we got a call from Pearl, Pamela's mom, and she goes and calls, and she goes, "Is Cliff okay?" Like, here's Pearl Morrison, Pamela's mom, calling about Cliff, checking, making sure he's okay when he was doing time, you know, and like, he's okay, everything's fine. Oh, okay, I'm just checking in to make sure he's okay. You know, I mean, she's passed away by now, but do you have Pam's mom call us at the office and check on Cliff? That was like, whoa, okay, you know.
So there's
Go ahead, Al.
a connection.
Yeah, definitely. That was another one that, you know, solidifies this with Cliff. I mean, we got so many people involved in this. I mean, we can go on and on, like, you know, it's a story in itself with a lot of stuff. I mean, we're just touching on just the beginning of all the stuff that we've gone through and people. I mean,
Oh, it's an incredible story. And
go ahead, Rock, bring it on.
One of the things everyone, I've talked to just a few close friends saying, you know, I'm going to be doing this story, you know, telling them a little bit about that, and saying, you know, what kind of questions would you ask? Just like anybody might, you know. And everybody says the same things. How come there's no DNA test? We have a DNA test for everything now. I mean, you can do everything now. And everybody seems to be very focused on that. Again, I think if one listens to the music and one looks at the pictures, I don't think it's too much of a stretch. The backstory of even whether it's true or not that the mother was a groupie, that type of thing. None of that is all implausible to me. And I think it's very, very possible to be able to believe this without a DNA test.
All right.
But I think the music is a great DNA test.
Let me touch on that briefly. Then you
Well, there was a DNA test, but didn't they keep it secret? Like,
okay, so that's what I'm going to talk about. I got a hard copy letter from the actual doctor, and I don't have it with me. I wish I would have brought it, but it is in my records that it showed Cliff back in the 90s, and I think it was Robbie Krieger walked him over to the doctor who takes care of all the blood work for Jim and all that, introduced him, and I have a copy of that blood results showing that he did go to this place and he did draw blood. And I got a handwritten statement that also that Cliff wrote telling me, yeah, this is where I went. I don't know if it's Derwin or something. I don't have it with me, but yeah, I do have that document too showing that he did go back then and had actually Robbie Krieger walk him over there to there. That's what I was told, and that's what I read. Okay, Al.
Okay, well, that's.
I didn't know if you were aware of that or not.
Said he went there, but what's the result? I mean,
that's what I mean. Yeah, I mean, that's what was stated, that I already did all that stuff. But yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, DNA, but I don't know what to tell you about that. With Clara Morrison, Cliff's daughter, when she's in school nowadays, I mean, even the everybody there goes that they say, hey, you're Jim's granddaughter, you know, and that's what she goes by, you know, and it's been known in her school and all that stuff, and the teachers and all that, the principal, they treat her like a queen, what I was told recently. So yeah, maybe one day that if Al and I can get this going, which we will someday, if we're going to go ahead and do some kind of a mini-series documentary or a film, we will find out at the end of this for the whole world to know who is Cliff Morrison. They never attacked me, the Morrison estate. I'll tell you that. For the website alone shows Cliff and Jim, father and son. They never attacked me for that. And when I released the song Liquid Highway, I remember Louis Reisman, the attorney, telling me, Floyd, don't release it, you know, and I did, and they never attacked me for that. So there's been a lot of incidents that they won't touch me because then legally they know they're going to go into court and then something's going to happen where they're going to have to provide, or somebody's going to go ahead and prove the DNA and show the results. And that's another thing that I have a few things investigating, you know, team also that Al and I can put together and do the DNA thing on the side if we want to. That's already ready to go too. We're just on standby, just seeing what we're doing right now, just getting this going. Go ahead, Al.
You know, I'm just happy to be part of rock history on this level because the Doors were probably one of the most legendary bands that ever came out of LA.
Great.
I lived in Los Angeles for 45 years of my life. I left permanently in 2018 because I saw what was happening to the state, California in particular. It was, you know, LA was becoming increasingly dilapidated and dangerous. It was also losing its historical significance in terms of no more places left to play. for artists. There was a time when Los Angeles was the music capital of the entire world. But slowly but surely, developers came in and knocked down all these great venues. Club Lingerie, the House of Blues, the Gig on Melrose, Club 88, the Cat Club, On the Rocks, the Key Club, Gazzari's. Just they were all gone. No more places to play. No music scene. How are you going to have a music scene with no places to play? Even at its peak in LA County, where there's 10 million people, you have maybe between 10 and 15,000 active artists trying to break into the music business for a career.
Yeah, it's hard.
To put that in perspective, Nashville, Tennessee has 750,000 people. 200,000 of them are active artists trying to get a musical career.
Sure.
And why is it thriving? Because there's hundreds and hundreds of places to play. When you have a lot of venues with live music, you're going to have a thriving music scene. When you take that away, you're not going to have anything left. Because why would anybody go do music in a place where there's no places to perform it?
Well, the whole point is the audience. If you can't get an audience, then why are you doing it?
The whiskey is the last man standing. Now, they were just offered $54 million. And if I'm them, I would take it and go live on an island somewhere. He paid $1 million for that place in 1999. Mario Maglieri. And now it's worth $54 million 23 years later. Take the money and run, man.
But it's the last man standing. It's like Fenway Park. Come on.
Yeah, I know.
Wrigley Field.
I love Fenway Park too because it's maintained its nostalgia.
It has.
It still looks like it did. Well, although they did put all those in the left field, they put all those little, the season seat boxes with.
Yeah. Well, it was the quintessential LA story, music story, as many people. I mean, even going back, not just the music story, the Hollywood story. There were times where I think is it Lana Turner I'm thinking of that was discovered in a drugstore with soda. People were discovered. Somebody was a street corner musician. The next day they got a contract. Somebody was pestering a DJ with a tape. These were all stories that, as a young musician, I heard, these are the ways you did. People hung around recording studios. They were just, all of this was possible. None of that happens now. It's gone.
Right, Boomer.
Just going to add in that Al's getting me back for an okay, Boomer. Earlier, prior to recording.
They go after us with this stuff because we have this nostalgia, and we're the last vestige of what's left of it, and that's why Floyd doesn't realize it, but I am trying to sell this catalog for a lot of money because the Cliff Morrison catalog of music is what is left of the music industry, which is a legacy tied to another legacy. This is why Hypnosis and Blackstone are buying up all these catalogs for millions of dollars, because there's literally nothing left of the music industry except these little crumbs of history. Because the new music industry now, you see what the dominant form is of music. It's the music anymore. Does anything that you hear today really connect with you? Like when you listen to Travis Scott or any of these rap artists or Cardi B, she wins 8 Grammys, but where's the talent? It's not like
like I said, I feel that very deeply because I listen to some of the. I said I'm a musician and I've been paying dues forever. And one of the things I always say is that a lot of it doesn't have a lot of heart. And what speaks to me are people. I love artists like Tab Benoit. I think that's an artist that's got a tremendous amount of heart. When he plays, you feel it. I think there are still artists out there that maybe aren't household names, and there are some legendary artists that no one's ever heard of.
That's true. And but a lot of what this music is today is digitally processed sound on a laptop using
been there, done that.
Pre-programmed stuff, and it's here in Nashville, I'll see a guy who could play banjo, mandolin, pedal steel, stand-up bass, can sing, play 12-string lead. One guy who has remarkable talent. I just don't see that with a lot of the modern music. I just see people who, I'll talk to them and I go, well, I do beats. You do beats. That's it. And then young people think that these DJs who put on headphones and make scratching sounds are musicians.
Yeah.
Well, what instrument are they playing?
Try telling that to those of us who went to piano lessons for I don't know how many years to learn an instrument.
Exactly right. So, it's just a different world. And
it is.
This project has got to come to fruition.
I want to touch on what you said, Al, for a second. You just caught my ear on that one. Cliff Morrison, when I was in their studio, this guy was multi-talented. When he can tell the drummer, the guy on the guitar, he pretty much told everybody how to play it on their instruments. I've never seen anybody do that before. With Cliff.
You're talking about his inner producer and engineer.
Oh yeah. Hey, no, change it. No, play it like this. All that. Whoa.
Yeah,
he's good at that.
I would love to. I'm going to defiantly, thanks to you, Rocky. I'm going to defiantly repost the "This Is the End" video from the LA Music Awards event and put it back up on YouTube.
Awesome. I can't wait to see it.
Yeah,
because
sure.
it's so incredibly good, and people watch it and they're literally just blown away. Like, wow, how does he do that? And
I want to share that too, Al, on my social platforms. Definitely, I don't have that one.
Upload it again.
Yeah,
because it was taken down, and it said copyright violation, and I'm like, what? We got people all over YouTube doing cover tunes of other artists. Why'd they take that down? There's no copyright.
So do you feel with all of this, they're going to take down that video? There were lots of opposition to some of the shows.
All the whiskey videos down. The one with the bomb threat, they took that whole thing down too. It's
reading the book and talking to you both, your commitment is tireless.
Oh yeah.
It is not so much
him, though. Geez, this guy's been at it 20 years trying to get this done.
Oh yeah.
And it is obviously because you believe in the music. And like I said, any performer would kill for that kind of backing. Where is Cliff?
Where is he now?
Where's Cliff? Where's Cliff in all of this?
He's on hiatus right now. I'm being honest. I just spoke with somebody recently, and I hate to say it, he's not doing well. And then, matter of fact, Alan Graham, Uncle Al, got a hold of me via Facebook Messenger probably about 8 months ago and sent me this video of actually Cliff in a trailer. And he's got cancer, so it wasn't good. All his teeth were gone. He's bald-headed, and it was bad. Just take that video down, please. Oh my God. And as a matter of fact, I just called a couple of days ago to talk to Lorraine, but nobody's picking up, so I just left it alone. But no, my understanding is that he's going to pass away here soon.
I'm sorry to hear that.
I know, it's sad, but it just on that kind of a lifestyle of drugs and all that he did, and heroin and partying and cocaine and all that. It's going to catch up to you.
Like father, like son, Rocky.
Yeah.
Well, there's something to be said for that. There's plenty of medical evidence that there's addiction issues.
Yes.
And I always wonder, and this, I can't imagine the pressure of being Jim Morrison's son. I can't imagine what that could be like to somebody feeling that they have to live up to that they have their own ideas, they have their own music. It's almost like, and I hate to say it, the Frank Sinatra Jr. complex, when someone has this talent of their own, in their own right, which is,
he did. For sure, he did, Rocky.
Absolutely. And one of the things I'm saying to myself is that, if I were gonna try to put myself in those shoes, would I feel like I had to live up to the lifestyle? Would I feel like was some of it destined by expectation?
I think a little bit of the lyrically, the poetry and all that. It's right on. Right, Al? The lyrics, songs, and it's just poetry in itself, just like his dad.
Very much so. I'd always said that Jim Morrison, to me, I'm a huge reader, and I love the poetry of Percy Shelley, and I've always thought that Jim Morrison was the Percy Shelley of our lifetime.
Yeah,
Definitely.
for sure.
especially Wilderness 1 and 2. Oh, that one got that took me away. But there's a cautionary tale in all of this, and again, to read the book and see what the lifetime, the choices. There's a lot of love gained and a lot of love lost. There's a lot of legacy, and it's an incredible story about not only the family ties, but how the music business works as a family, sometimes dysfunctional,
No, for
and
sure.
in all of that as well. So, what's the next step for Morrison Land?
Okay. Can I touch on something real quick? It's
Oh,
gonna
absolutely.
be the spirituality that I brought to Cliff. When he was with me, I had him baptized, right? And getting him on the right side and on the right path. Everybody got baptized. Lisa, Lorraine, and Cliff. They all got baptized, right? And so from there, everything was good. We're doing fine. And then, like the incident we talked about when Lorraine passed on the deal for the $1 million, literary agent and blah blah reality show, and that's when everything went sideways. And then from there, I'm talking on a spiritual level, was that I had Cliff staying in one of my homes in South Shores at the time, and that was it. I'm done. You can't pass on $1 million and all that. And the band members were all pissed off and. You got to go, brother. You can't do that to me. I worked so hard to get where I need to get you guys, and I did it, but you guys passed on the deal, and I'm paying for the mortgage, the food. I mean, this has been going on for a year and some change, so this cost me at least $4,000 or $5,000 a month for these people to make this happen. So I shut it down. I shut Lizard Sun Entertainment down. I was done. All right, time to move out. They wouldn't move out, so I had to hire my friend who's an attorney. Had him evicted, brought him to court, 30 days. I even had my mom there, my priest, everybody. You got to go, man. You guys took advantage of me. So that happened. Right. So after that, they left. It's a 2-story home, and I went downstairs, and there's a bathroom down there, and this is where Cliff was staying in the bottom level. And then on the toilet seat there, I'm with my pastor. There's an inscribed on the toilet seat of pentagram. And I looked at my pastor, I go, what's this? And he goes, oh my God, that's the devil's sign. Like, really? And then he goes, yeah, man, every time he goes to the bathroom, and you know what? He's thinking about this, and this is shitting on you. I go, whoa. Then when I look across the wall, there it is. Honest, Al, on the wall across from the toilet is Latin, and written in Latin on the wall, this whole poem and stuff. And I couldn't decipher it. And then my priest goes, whoa, let me read this. And he goes, oh my God, these guys praying to the devil. And it was all on the side of the wall. My hair was standing up in my arm. I go, oh my God, this dude.
You never told me this one. Where's that in the book?
That's what I mean. Some of this stuff I didn't bring in the book, but yeah, I mean, we could put that in the movie.
In the movie.
Yeah, definitely that'll be in the movie. But yeah, I mean, that happened too, man. And that after that, then we went ahead and had people come over, sage it, and whatever we had to do to clean that aura at the house, But that was another thing, Rocky, that happened was he got back on the devil shit. You know what I mean? And then that's when everything started going backwards for him, getting in trouble, catching a case, and all that stuff that happened to him was because of that.
Yeah, I'm going to go with you on that. That makes perfect sense. Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, irrespective of whether, folks would think it was spiritual or psychological, if you put yourself in a dark place in either case, you're going to spiral.
Yes.
In the sense that, if I think when people are lost, they find strange things. They go for any port in a storm.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's it, with no disrespect to any and all belief systems. And I believe there's light and dark in the world, and you have to respect it equally.
I do too.
I think that, when it's an act of desperation and it's, it's coming from a dark place, and there's always a chance that it's going to spiral. And that can be, it seems like it was the case. So but that had to be very freaky for you it must have been like walking into a horror movie.
Oh, it was. My hair was standing. I go, oh my God, this guy got into this now. Like, oh wow, that was bad. And that's what I was telling Al, that it's just like, this is when everything started spiraling out of control, catching a case, the robbery, everything. And then when we talk about the mentality of him, that was some subject that we were discussing, was that, yeah, when Angela Gates had him as what, the defense attorney, correct, Al?
Yes.
And then from there, he pleaded insanity. So the first one, they took him to the State Patent Mental Hospital for what, 4 months roughly?
Yeah.
And then they let him back out, and they again went back to court and did it again and threw him back in again for another evaluation. So that's twice. So he's playing out the system, trying to plea bargain through this insanity plea was not working for him. And then from there, that's when I believe Angela Gates jumped in. All right, let's do a plea deal here. And what was it, 10 years we're going to give you? And he took it. And then from there, I went down there to visit him while he was locked up. I've never been in that kind of a institution before. But I came in a suit and tie and walked in through the corridor, through that whole system, corridors and corridors, walking, waiting to look for the right cell that he's in. And so I finally came to the right spot. I walked in there, and then there was just plate glass windows all the way across. And I kind of stepped up a little bit to look inside. And then there's this staircase that leads down below on the bottom floor. Then you can see the guy, the sheriff down there in charge of the lock system, opening and closing. You can see all the pneumatic stuff that he had in control of. So I can see that he's hitting the button. Here comes Cliff coming up, walking up the stairs and up to the glass plate. We both pick up the phone, and I go, "Wait, bro, you okay?" He goes, "Man, good to see you." And I said, "Yeah, I was checking on you." And he goes, "Man, can you put some money on the books for me, man? I ain't getting no food." And I said, "All right." So yeah, I put like a couple $100 on the books so he can eat stuff. And then, we kind of rode that out for a while till finally they transferred him to another. Matter of fact, Lisa and I, Cliff's baby's mama, you want to refer to her, both visited Cliff in both prisons at the time. He was here locally and then transferred to another one. And we would go on Saturday, take that drive, and go visit him and spend the night at some hotel and stuff, and go back again, visit, and yeah, it was put money on the books and stuff. But bottom line was that the True Life Story Rights Agreement came out of that. And for me to continue putting money on the books, this is where Nicole David from the William Morris Agency said, "Floyd, you need to do a movie about this, or something here." And I said, "All right." And then that's where we coordinated with the attorneys and got the True Life Story Rights Agreement, and then had them sign it. In regards to that, then from there, then I would go ahead and put money on the books every month for him to eat while we contractually bind it to this contract. So I'm able to get the True Life Story rights exclusively signed to me. That's how that happened for Morrison Land. Okay, Al?
Perfect. Wow.
Just a little bit. I just had to touch on some of it. We got so much to talk about. There's many people.
You got way more emotionally and financially invested in this than I did. I mean, I did my part. I want to help broker this to completion. I have shared this with some powerful people. Alan Graham, he has a reputation of striking fear in the hearts of people who oppose him. I think he's harmless now at 80 years old in a wheelchair. I don't see what he could possibly do other than yell at people.
That's what he does. I saw something recently through Jay Lizard. He sent me the link via Twitter, and there is Uncle Al in the corner, wearing some kind of outfit, like still screaming and yelling at his age. And I go, "Oh my God, he's never changed," like you said. But
yeah.
Well, I don't think you can find a more colorful cast of characters
No.
than there is,
Because the strange part is it's all true. It's like,
right.
You can only see this if you work in show business. That's the other.
Well, how many times a day, if you work in show business, and I got news, a few other businesses, do you say to yourself, "Man, I can't make this shit up"?
I know.
Oh, for sure.
I cannot.
I would like to touch on something real quick, Rock.
Sure.
For Cliff, back before I met him, I mean, like Al was saying, man, so a lot of famous people came involved with Cliff, and the audience really doesn't know exactly how this went down, but I'm just going to briefly say that what happened, of course, he attracts attention and support from Jim Morrison's brother-in-law, Alan Graham, which we talked about. Then he tours in Europe, in Germany, with the ex-mafia boss, Michael Francesi. Now, his dad is the major crime boss out of New York. And his dad, you know, he had his son even believing that Cliff is who he is. And then you got Matthew Mellon, Carnegie Mellon's scion, writing songs with Cliff also, and he's a big Doors fan, or really a Jim Morrison fan.
Go ahead.
That's what I was told. The stories that I was told, Rock, my thing is the audience really doesn't know how it all started, kind of, but I mean, I'll start a little bit about it. I mean, Cliff was able to get the attention of, we all talked about is Jim Morrison's brother-in-law, Alan Graham. And then from there, after that whole situation kind of just fizzled out between them, nobody got along and a lot of fighting going on. And then he jumps in with Michael Francesi and takes him to Germany. Now, Michael Francesi, his father is the major crime boss in New York City, heavy hitter, and he's been in quite a few movies. And I have respect for this man because he even did some major time. And then when he did, he came out as a new person, and now he's with the Lord, and you know, that's all he does is preach, and he's on the right path now. Michael, I met him one time in Marina Del Rey because I was about ready to take over the soul scene and start over, and Cliff told me, Floyd, you got to go meet Michael Francesi. We need his blessing before you start Lizard Sun Entertainment. And I thought, what the hell? Okay. So we go to Marina Del Rey, and we have this lunch setting, and I'm sitting there, and then here comes this dude walking up with two bodyguards. And I didn't know at the time. He go, oh, hey. Then Cliff stands up and go, oh, hey, Michael, this is Floyd. And I stood, oh, nice to meet you, sir, and blah, blah, blah. And I just want to let you know Floyd's taking over, and we're going to start Lizard Sun Entertainment, and we want to make sure we have your blessings. And Michael says, oh, yeah, for sure, man. You guys go ahead and do it. And that was really cool with Michael. And you know, I've been talking to him back then, you know, for years, you know, on and off about it. But the next one, then you got, again, like, we all talk about Matthew Mellon, you know, they'll get bigger than that when it comes into the Banking Institute and Carnegie Hall and the Scion he was known for, and writing music with Cliff and going into the banks that they owned and going into a bank vault, sitting on stacks of money, doing cocaine and writing songs in the vault. You know what I mean? This is the kind of shit that was going on with Matthew and Cliff. You know what I mean?
That's a movie scene. That is such a movie scene.
And then, of course, on and off, I mean, we exchanged emails, Matthew and I, you know, back and forth, you know, try to get him to get in part of this deal, but he's on his own thing. And one thing is that when Bitcoin first came out, Matthew was in the mix on that at the beginning stages. And we have mutual friends. Matter of fact, another famous actor here that's still alive, and I'll just say his first name's Billy. And I won't say his last name, but he was very close with Cliff and Matthew and grew up with him, trying to get him to get involved in this too, but we'll see what happens. But he told me even also that when Cliff got out of prison, when he did, Matthew came with his own personal bodyguards and all that stuff, met Cliff on the side of here by me, off the side of the freeway, grabbed him and took him back up to Hollywood Hills. And they had a certain term for this mansion that they were renting. But at the time there, they had a studio there. They had Cliff set up there. And like, I met him before he left. And it was just like, you need to move on, dude, do your thing. And he did. And I got one song out of that while he was there that he sent to me. And it says, Can't Go to Hell. I got it. I got the song. I haven't released it yet. I do have it though. And so from there, like, all right. And then after a while, we hear Matthew and Cliff are partying heavy, doing their thing. And Matthew decided, well, I'm going to go get cleaned up. You know, it's in the book. And so Matthew flies out in his private jet, but he doesn't have his original bodyguards. He's got a whole new set of bodyguards around him. And so they fly out, they touch down in Cancun and get ready to go into a resort to go ahead and, you know, go through that whole thing, that process of cleaning up, rehabilitation, if you want to refer it to that. And then the next day, they found Matthew dead in the hotel room. 6 feet away was a syringe, 6 feet away.
Oh my.
So to me, like, it's in the book. We all know that Matthew did not do that, and we know that he was murdered. And also, this other individual that was close, Billy, even said that the bodyguards that was assigned to him was not his team. It was another team that was assigned to watch him, and they let that shit happen.
Now, one of the things you're not mentioning, Floyd, is that Mellon.
Go ahead, Al.
Well, Matthew Mellon's family, and they're very famous New York family. So you might want to look at this. Mellon Bank and Trust, Mellon Holdings, Carnegie Mellon University, very, very famous family. Their net worth is about $20 trillion. And Matthew Mellon was one of the forerunners of the cryptocurrency game.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
And then he gets found dead with this syringe like he's had a drug overdose. A guy worth that much, traveling in a jet-setting lifestyle, that he had all the beautiful women and private planes and freaking Ritz-Carlton suites. It's not shooting heroin. Sorry, I'm not buying it.
Well,
But
some people might say that an alcoholic rock star who was sitting in a bathtub in Paris wasn't really shooting heroin either.
Well,
Just saying.
I'll take that out.
Just saying.
I think that the Matthew Mellon death is one of the most mysterious things. It makes no sense to me.
Well, you
There's
described, like I
something-
said, there's so much intrigue to this story. There is such an incredible cast of characters. So, again, folks, if you want to read the book, Morrison Land, you can go to Amazon and look up Morrison Land, and that's going to bring you right to Floyd's book. Highly recommend. It's a terrific read. Movies in the works.
Yes.
And if folks want to hear Cliff's music, we're going to play, when we go out, we're going to play a little bit of a song called Rock Down on our way out. But also they can go to YouTube and look up Cliff Morrison and the Lizard Sun Band.
I don't think there's much on there. Is there anything on there?
Yeah, under my channel, Cliff does have, and you know what? When we performed at the NAMM show, it's all videotaped, and you know all the song, the set, and all that. And then I filed a copyright registration for that whole performance, and it's under my name. So that whole performance at the NAMM is copywritten by me. You know what I mean? So nobody can take it down or touch it. You know what I'm saying? I got that live performance on lockdown.
Okay,
But
perfect.
I never got the one from the Warner Grand though. Who, you know, when you came in and
Where's that? That was an incredible show.
I don't know who has the footage.
Video
for that.
cameras there.
Huh?
There were video cameras at that event.
I'm trying. You know, one is David Mora, the actual guy that played the conga. Supposedly he has it, but he's not revealing it or letting me have a copy of it. There's a couple of the.
So there's a lot of people that seem to always be, as soon as you get a little headway, it seems that
Saboteurs, man, everywhere you
two
turn.
steps back.
I mean, legally, I can go after him legally, if you know, later on down the road if I need to, because that's my intellectual property, not yours. You know what I mean?
Certainly. Well, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you taking the time to talk about this project and to talk about Cliff Morrison and to share this incredible music. And the world needs to hear this story and needs to go ahead and, like I said, get the book. And Al, you said you're gonna be putting up the video again of the.
I am, and I will let you know when it's up, and then you can watch it. You
Absolutely,
tell me
and so be watching the Macabre World podcast page for that. We'll post a link. And is there anything else you wanted to add before we leave?
I mean, me personally, we only touched on just a bit of this. I mean, I would like to go for another second podcast because we didn't even touch on Lisa, Clara. I mean, there's so much stuff that we really didn't touch on. Remember, I was hashtagging all these things: murder, drama, action, prison
There's
life.
more murder. We've talked about murder. There's more murder.
Oh no, there's another one. Yeah,
What?
matter of fact, the one I'm not sure. I think you met her, Al. Was Sabine. off
Oh,
of Germany.
no, that mysterious death of Sabine.
Yeah, in Germany. I remember her.
She was
Tell
being.
about the story about that one.
Yeah, yeah, we should do a future podcast on all this death surrounding.
I think we definitely have a second podcast in the works.
Oh yeah,
for sure. Folks can look forward to a part 2 of this entire story. But we're gonna wrap it up for this one.
Okay.
And we're gonna play a little bit of rock down. But folks, again, you can go to morrisonland.com and go ahead and see all of the information there. Follow it on IMDb so that you can see when the movie's going to be released. Let folks know you want to see this film. And Al, is there anything you wanted to add?
I just want to say that, I have beared witness to this story, not from its inception, but from the point where Floyd was about to become successful with it and get all his money back. I was there during the eviction process when he had to kick them out. I was there. I went to the court trial in Los Angeles when Cliff was being tried for armed robbery, even though he had a water pistol. I mean, California is just so nuts. Didn't he only have a water pistol, Floyd? Like, he didn't really have a real gun, right?
Oh yeah, it was a water pistol with that mask. That's like 3 or 4 times he's been done that, from the past. I mean, that's his MO.
It was like, but he wasn't really armed, so
No.
the whole thing was kind of comical. And to know that Cliff is not in good health and in a good way, sad to hear. But I will do all I can as the legitimate godson of rock and roll, as handed to me and bequeathed by Bill Gazzari in 1991, to keep the Doors legacy and the legacy of Cliff Morrison alive through the making of this film, and then to get Floyd on the red carpet later this year and give him a literary award for this, and give him the podium and the dais to speak to the press and walk the red carpet and make this an award-winning project.
We will.
That's what I do. I mean, I produce the Nashville Music Awards, and this fits right in.
No, for sure we will.
That's what I'm going to do. That's all I want to say.
And we will definitely have a second podcast where we're going to go a little bit deeper into this. But I can't thank you enough for all that you've done. And again, we're going to go out with a little bit of rock down. So I want to thank you all for listening. I'm Rocky Digati. This is the Macabre World Podcast. And remember, stay kooky out there. Thank you for listening to Macabre World. You can find us on the web at www.darkerartsstudio.com.